And you're welcome. It's time for the dailies now. Thank you very much for joining us. We've got quite a list of them here. We're going to start with the Guardian newspaper for a Thursday, the 8th of June. And I have Titi with me here. Titi, how you doing?
Yeah,
how you doing?
I'm all right. I'm good.
All right, so let's get to the papers now. We have very interesting headlines for you this morning, hoping that you could also pick one or two up and maybe share some of your comments with us. We've got this one, Opera over NNPC sleazy $25.9 billion oil swap. 13.9 trillion naira subsidy payment. There are diagrams there with infographics telling about what you can make from 1 barrel of oil.
Let's see if we can go into
and how it gets. Yeah, you could put that up on the screen there. Very interesting infographic telling how Nigeria's oil goes or where it goes here and there.
Yeah.
There also are talks about protests in other countries due to Nigeria subsidy removal and how it's affecting these other countries and all of that. That was bound to happen. At the bottom of the Guardian newspaper, this headline here, subsidy removal, Tinubu meets oil marketers, directs neck on interventions. There's a headline on another paper that goes in depth on it, exactly what is going to be discussed or perhaps what palliatives will be made. But very interesting headlines here. Still on the Guardian, I will do my best to comment promises at inauguration as SGF, and Atiku laments inability to access INEC materials, overpaying 6.69 million naira to commission. And finally, Ondo cabinet splits over Akeredolu's incapacitation. All of that you can find on the Guardian newspaper.
I was going to say, I feel like we have a lot more information in this past, 2 weeks of this dispensation than, we ever had before. I feel like we're being carried along. There's like every single meeting, every single, thing that's happening in Aso Rock where we're getting to hear a lot more about it. And it does feel like the government has hit the ground running. There hasn't been a day without much activity. There's never been a rest day. But I also wanted to mention this infographic, which sort of breaks down what you can make from 1 barrel of oil. I found that really interesting. And I don't think the Guardian do this very much, but when they do, they make a point of it. So for instance, that's about 40 or 50 miles for a truck. That's 1 barrel of oil. And then about, let's see, you can also do 195 plastic buckets from that. And I think 540 toothbrushes from that. So they're trying to give you a perspective on how much can be made from 1 single barrel of oil.
I think the perspective, you can shift the perspective into noting the fact that we export most of these and we don't extract all of the byproducts here and use those byproducts. So we're actually losing more than we actually think.
Sure.
So
but it's not that we can't. We have to have the things, the means to do. Maybe the infrastructure hasn't been there, or maybe we've just not thought well enough about it.
I'll give you a very relative example. Your flip-flops, for instance, that come all the way from certain countries. You could make tons of money from that alone, from extracts from a barrel of crude oil, which we are missing out on. In fact, we get them imported in and then we pay to buy them, which we could actually have had them made here. But I think we should move on now to our next day. What do you have there?
We have the Nation newspaper here, and it says here, Tinubu to governors, it's time for governance. And the president asked NEC to work on subsidy palliatives. 75 senators-elect backing Akpabio, says Ndume. And returning students from Sudan get conditions for admission. Yeah, we haven't really talked much about Sudan in the past week because of, the incoming government. But those students that came in from Sudan, their schooling was basically put on hold with no, light at the end of the tunnel for when they're going to resume or if they were going to resume. And the situation in Sudan seems to have hit a plateau, and they don't know whether they're going back, going forward. So I think it's a really good idea to, get them settled back here in Nigeria.
There was also plenty of talk regarding the Ukrainian instance where students had to come back or refuse to take whatever intervention the government had for them, thinking that or saying that it wasn't up to scratch. I remember that the returning Sudanese students or returning Nigerian students from Sudan were also advised not to take the toll or take cue from those students. But you have to ask yourself, what are the standards? Are they the same, or will we be getting exactly the same kind of education Plenty to ask. I don't have answers.
Honestly, once things like war break out, unrest, let's say,
Take
break
what you
out,
get.
I feel like, yeah, especially since it's being offered to them. This is education we're talking about. And thank goodness for the internet. They can always back it up with research and whatnot.
Okay.
And there are a lot of online courses they can still do. So if I were them, yeah, I would take it.
Okay, we've got a final paper for today. The Punch newspaper has a couple of headlines, very interesting one. I'm going to start from the top here. National Assembly, Tinubu, APC move to appease anti-zoning members, and poor debt-ridden states give Governor Jumbo exit package. Ex-SGF hands over Boko Haram detainees, Magus cases to Akume. And the big one for the Punch is subsidy. Tinubu orders Shetima governors to work on salaries and palliatives. The writers here say, start work, Tinubu tells NEC as 22 governors, marketers back subsidy removal, and oil plan salary increase. A Labour gives June 19 ultimatum on 200,000 naira minimum wage. Very interesting conversations that have been going on regarding minimum wage. From 30,000 naira, we're looking for where to place it now so that people would at least be able to manage with the shock of the removal of subsidy. The Edo State Governor, Obaseki, however, did increase minimum wage for Edo State to 40,000 naira.
Yeah.
What 10,000 naira extra could do, well, I don't know.
Well,
A tank of fuel.
It is still something.
A tank of fuel for most people is 40,000 naira.
It's something.
About 30,000 to 40,000.
And then, of course, he reduced the work week to 3 days.
Yes, he reduced the work week to 3 days, which are very good measures. Palliative measures, grand. You can't say he didn't try. However, considering the magnitude of change that people are experiencing with fuel prices going up 2.5%, oh sorry, 200, over 200%, that's a big deal. Yesterday, I was trying to get my tires fixed, and the guy wouldn't put on his machine because he had very little fuel. These very little things affect us in so many ways that you don't begin to understand, maybe until after a month of going through it. You're like, we have a problem here. You know, so there's so much to think about. We're hoping that the TUC will have, or NLC would actually have, well, let's see how they can come to the aid of the people in these terms in helping fight for that subject regarding minimum wage.
And of course, we will be looking out for the what happens next in most of these stories, and we'll be giving you updates as they come to us.